Hi, good morning and welcome to the ZP Developer Zone. So every um, Thursday at 8 a.m. London time, we like to do a really webinar for the members of our ZP Developer Zone and answer sort of technical questions that come in, and any questions or any comments that come in during the chat as well. We also try to deal with those as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump essentially straight into it. And we always show this slide and we say, if you're interested in biosensing, don't forget we have our ZP Academy. There are a couple of free courses on there. And importantly, within the free courses, there's actually a discussion on ion selective electrodes. So that will come up a few times today in the conversation, ion selective electrodes. The other part of it is that we also do these webinars. So for example, we do these webinars every Thursday at 8 a.m. And we also do we do these webinars. We also do collaborations, and we also do we advertise jobs as well. And we also have our ZP Developer Zone website and our workshops. I'm just going to check that this is actually still streaming. I think it is. And so now what I'm going to do is just jump into it a little bit and say that we have we always talk about, collaborations and sort of encourage people to, come to ZP or interact with ZP. So it's probably worth saying that one of our long-time collaborators is actually with us this week. This is Selçuk. He's from Turkey, and he's with us for the rest of the month. So we very much welcome Selçuk, and thank you to Selçuk for visiting us and this month. So now what I want to do is I want to jump basically into the questions from this week. So the question that came in this week was really around, the questioner said, I must detect ammonia, nitrite and nitrate, and they want to do it in seawater. And then the next question is, what is the best method? So I think I've sort of given a bit of a clue on that I've said, look, in the ZP Academy, we talk about lots of techniques. There's a couple of free courses, and one of them we touch upon is ion selective electrodes. And also the questioner or the inquirer answers that question for themselves as well. And they say, here, I think it's ion selective electrodes. And therefore they sort of need a potentiostat or that can measure these kind of signals. And then they also say, I want to make my own, and they're really looking for an open source device that's currently supported. So I will sort of cover that now in the rest of this webinar. So in terms of advice, obviously you've touched upon in your query the ammonium sensor, and you've touched upon the nitrate sensor. Now you didn't mention pH sensing. I did note that you asked for nitrite. So at ZP we do have an ammonium sensor, we do have a nitrate sensor, and if you're going to be doing this kind of work, you might as well go for pH as well. And we do have a pH sensor. Now, if you look at the data for these sensors, we have a lot of this kind of data on our website. And then, by the way, anything I reference to the ZP website, I will put a link below the video as well. So when you look at the data for these kind of sensors, you can see obviously that we have millivolts versus time. So the clue is in the data that these are, at ZP, we're making commercially available ion selective electrodes for analytes, and they happen to overlap also with the analytes that you're interested in, ammonium, nitrate, and pH. My advice is if somebody's trying to make a potentiostat for measuring ion selective electrodes, maybe start with pH, because pH is something that you can sort of readily test, you can always get acids and bases, let's say, and so you can readily sort of test this this kind of application. Now, what I'm going to do now, Ian, is just migrate forward for slightly and just say, yes, there is the ZP Academy. If you're unsure about ion selective electrodes, then please feel free to access the ZP Academy. There are a couple of free courses on that. Now, the inquirer did specifically ask about open source potentiostats. So we do have a page on the ZP website dedicated to open source potentiostats, and we have about 7 open source potentiostats listed there. Now, the issue with these open source potentiostats is actually some of them could be from articles that are quite old. Even 2017, when you're talking about electronics, is quite an old article, because chips progress quite quickly, and therefore it's sort of even the chips and technologies that people are suggesting in these types of articles, unless they keep updating, then they're really essentially too old by the time at this stage. It's worth saying that there's one article there called the Simple Stat, which was a paper released in 2021. So that's fairly up to date. Now, the one I can't recommend because we haven't done it, but the one that is quite up to date, the author of this did reach out to me a little while back. So the fact is, the author is out there supporting and reaching out to people to promote the fact that he has this potentiostat. Is the seed stat. It's this spelling of SEEE is not an error or a spelling mistake. That's the way it's spelled. So I think the one that's most supported at the moment is the seed stat. But you do make an interesting point that actually open sourcing, it's only as good as how much support the person is willing to give. And of course, they're giving that support for free. So the most valuable resource that people have in their life is their time. And so when they're giving it for free, they're giving you something quite valuable, but they're not essentially charging you for it. So what do I want to say on this? I want to say, if you are building an open source potentiostat, it's probably worth you having something that does work. And so I would recommend that if you're going to build your own potentiostat, you need something to sort of tell you, what's working, what's not working, or something to compare against. So we do have something on our website called the OEM Potentiostat. On the next slides, I'll just introduce that. So if you just ask me a quick question, which one do I think you should go forward with from the open source pool of potentiostats, then it's probably the seed stat. There'll be links below the video. They're already there, and you can take a look at that. If you want to compare it with something that we trust, let's say obviously we do trust our own product, so this is an OEM solution that we make. You can connect to it through a USB port on a PC, use a terminal program to essentially set all the parameters, the comms port, the speed, the data, the parity. It's quite simple to do, and we've actually helped quite a few people out with this. And then it basically just streams data at you that you can then view later on in a sort of CSV or text viewer, like Excel. So I just sort of summarize what I've said. So the question I wanted to know, how do I test for ammonium and nitrate? And I suggested pH, and yes, I agreed with their question that ion selective electrodes are really quite a good technology for this. Therefore, they need a potentiostat. There's a lot of open source potentiostats out there. There's at least 7. The one that seems to be most up to date and most supported is that seed stat, and it's spelled SEEDSTAT. And then I'm just saying, look, even this, even if you do this, you probably need to get some sort of reference electronics, something that works. So have a look at our ISC OEM product. I just want to say hi to Aftab, who's joined us online this morning. Aftab, if the scene behind me is slightly changed, it's because I'm doing this from a hotel this morning. So So I think I've answered the question. It's a seed stat, and I've also sort of recommended you have a look at one of our OEMs as well. It's probably worth saying, look, if you're going to do this, then I would recommend that you also take a look at this system as well. I will also link to this as well. I'm just going to make a message to after. I just explained to him that actually I've got a poor connection this morning because I happen to be at a hotel. But I would recommend taking a look at this particular link because it sort of gives you a sense of what you can actually achieve. So this is one of our, let's say, solutions. It's pretty small, and you can see that we can get the whole potentiostats down to the size of your fingertip. So the seed stat seems to be the most supported open source potentiostat out there, and you can try it. You can compare it next to our ISC OEM solution, but I'm also showing that even our ISC OEM solution is actually quite large, and actually you should be able to make it much smaller. And if you're thinking right, you should be able to make it the size of a fingertip. It's good to reduce the materials. If you want something to be low cost and sort of, let's say, environmentally sustainable these days, then the shrinkage is a good thing. So I said I put some useful links up underneath the video. So we've got a useful link up about the pH sensors that are ion selective electrodes, the nitrate sensors, the ammonium sensors, the article about open source potentiostats. I think this landing page that we have on open source potentiostats is probably the most up to date and the most comprehensive at the moment. We do curate it, we do keep it up to date. The total biosensing solution will give you a sense of how small you could really make these things. I think that should be good inspiration for you. And that just leaves me with a quick one today. So this is a quick one today. We just had one question. I dived into it quite deeply. And then just finally, as I say, we're delighted that we've got one of our ZP Developer Zone members with us this month. We've been hanging around together. And so, as I say, we do collaborations with our members. And we're delighted to have Selchuk with us for this month. So I'm going to sign off now. As I say, I never like doing these things from hotels. We have to deal with slow internet connections, etc. But thank you for sticking with us on this one, and I shall speak to you soon. If you have any questions, just reach out to the ZP, and we will answer them through this this forum. All right, thank you very much. Take care. Bye-bye.